When you're looking for a hydration product, what are the things that you're looking for?
If I'm ever looking for a hydration product, the number one thing I'm looking for is that it tastes good. Like, water has no taste at all. Water's what, like, nature turns to rehydrate, and that's a little bit boring. And then you come down, are you gonna go with sugar? Are you gonna go with sugar-free? And all of this is just conversations point. Does this taste better than the other product? That's it. Jocko Hydrate is delicious. It's got electrolytes. That's between you guys. I don't know what electrolyte is. Frankly, I don't even need one. You could give me more electrolytes than the opponent, I'll beat the opponent. You could give me less than the opponent, I'll still beat the opponent. I can't even spell electrolyte. This has them, whatever that is. And it tastes good, which is really what matters. I'm a little bit stuck on Jake Paul and the weight discrepancy with Mike Perry. Now, my entire life, have been in a sport which turned into an industry, to a business, a job, that is wildly unique. And I don't think many could relate to it. I had a job where they would weigh you in and tell the world what you weighed before they let you go to work. And I don't believe there's any industry where that could happen and they would not be sued instantly and they would lose. It's very unique. Can we agree on that? Okay. So Paul looks bigger than Perry. Paul is bigger than Perry. Paul has a longer reach, he has height, and he has pounds on Perry. Like, this isn't disputable, but it's also not acceptable. Paul has too many pounds on Perry. Now, hold that thought. The first time I saw Brock Lesnar be a baby is when I had to explain to you guys that his wrestling credentials were greatly misleading. And he did not like it. It hurt his feelings. And the example that I'm making is the weight class is 285 pounds, okay? He weighed in at the limit of 285 pounds. But the gentleman that he had in the NCAA Finals, West Hand, weighed 220 pounds. Now, it doesn't have to be West Hand. I'm just picking a match. I'm picking the big match. You have a guy that's got 65 pounds of iron, right? I mean, he built the right way. They don't put that in a needle that it turned fat. Right? He's got it the right way. You're spotting him 65 pounds. Nobody said boo. Now, that's fine, but the match went to double overtime. And there's no part of that that takes Brock's championship away. He was the NCAA champion. He was the undefeated NCAA champion. I'm just sharing with you that when I tell you that it's greatly misleading and you think you've got an NCAA champion going into the ring, so you better watch out for this wrestling and don't get into an over-under with him. And in the open, he's going to have this big blast double. I'm sharing with you, he didn't have a big blast double on a guy that he had 65 pounds on. That's just the truth. And every other match he had, it doesn't have to be the West Hand match. It doesn't have to be that match. When you're that big, look, let's bring Tyson Fury into it to prove the point. Tyson Fury gets in the ring with guys that are 230 and 240. And very, very rarely 250. Very rarely. And Tyson gets in there a little bit south of 300 pounds. Now, them's the rules. There's nothing nefarious to see here. But the reason I bring Brock being a baby for the first time, the reason I bring that into it is that's not an issue for any of you. Not only is it not an issue for any of you, it wasn't an issue for Brock that the first time he got called on it, which was by me, he got upset. It hurt his feelings. But who's right there? Me or him? If I'm explaining somebody's wrestling ability to you, and in their most important match, they got 65 pounds. Again, I'm not trying to dwell on that match. Grab any match, any heavyweight. I mean, just walking around heavyweight, you just don't see guys cutting to the limit. I can assure you that Brock was the biggest guy in the bracket. There was nobody else cutting down the right way. It looked like Brock. Nobody. And over most guys, he's going to have about 30 pounds. And I will share with you, I'll just personalize that I didn't reach my goals in wrestling. There wasn't a man in that tournament that I outweighed by 30 pounds that could make it to double overtime with me. Not even remotely close. And they wouldn't pretend that they could. There wasn't any All-Americans in any of those brackets. You could bring whoever you wanted. If they had 30 pounds on them, they're not getting a double overtime. And it's just it's an example that I'm giving you because it's accepted. It's not an example to relive. I'm accepting to tell you that had that fight been at heavyweight, you wouldn't have asked any questions and you wouldn't have brought it up. And maybe they had another heavyweight fight that night. I don't know. Those cards are painfully boring. But if they did have other heavyweight fight, there is most likely on that very card that you're complaining about, there's most likely a weight discrepancy greater than Paul versus Perry. There is on every single card that I've ever seen. I've got to disclose, right? I didn't watch the guy. I watched Uriah versus Chavez, which was a robbery. Uriah beat him. And I watched the main event. But I'm sure for any time that you have a heavyweight fight, you're going to have a discrepancy that is equal to what Paul had on Perry. But I'm talking about every single night, and you could even times it by 3 and 4, and it's never a question because that's the weight class. But somehow when it's heavyweight, that's the weight class. But somehow with a similar discrepancy or even less, not with it. Do you see where it gets weird? And I'm not suggesting for you that it doesn't matter. I get that size matters. I fully understand that. Roy Jones is getting ready to fight Ruiz, and his own father said, I'm not going to watch the fight. His own father said, I don't need to see a Volvo versus a Mack truck. My son is better, but it's too much man. He can't deal with Ruiz. And Roy went out there and touched him up. Almost every example that you could give me where this happened, the smaller guy touched him up. You're not going to be, you might come up with one, you're not coming up with five, and I'm not being exaggerative. Right off the top of your head, you're not going to give me where two studs met and the bigger guy beat the littler guy. You're not going to give me 5 examples in your entire life of watching this. It generally doesn't go that way. Speed is so important. Conditioning is so important. The smaller guy's got the speed, at least in theory. The smaller guy's got the conditioning because he's carrying around less weight, at least in theory. And so I want to be with you. I want to bag on Paul, and I want to talk about Perry was too small. I want to do all of those things. It leaves reality when the average heavyweight fight on any given night has 2 and 3 times the weight discrepancy, and we don't bat an eye.